So guys, I'm here to talk about syntropic agriculture. Syntropic agriculture is something that I found extremely beneficial in the face of today's climate crisis and food crisis and resource crisis. So basically, syntropic agriculture is a regenerative technique that has been developed in Brazil by a Swiss-German farmer named Ernst Gosch. The way that he developed this was by observation and interaction with nature. Basically, he takes the rainforest as a model for, I guess, agriculture, in the sense that we see how abundant and diverse it is, and create a garden or a farm or a whatever you might call it, a system where you're replicating the forest. So there are 5 main principles of syntropic agriculture. The first one would be absolutely no bare soil. So when you observe a forest, you look at the ground, there's no bare soil. It's covered in mulch. It's covered in all the droppings of the trees. So that's the first principle, is no bare soil, absolutely. So when we set up our garden, we make sure we use tons of mulch. They say that too much mulch, there's no such thing as too much mulch. The second principle is to maximize photosynthesis. In maximizing photosynthesis, we are drawing nutrients into the soil. So when they plant in their consortiums and their guilds, they plant not just one species or 2 species or 3 species, they plant up to 10 species of different plants on different time cycles and in different stratifications. So the next principle is natural succession. So the plants, when you're planting in these guilds, they naturally, taking over the next plant. So when we plant a system, we might plant your 45-day herbs with your 60-day lettuces, with your 90-day brassicas. And then you're also planting trees, fruit trees, eucalypts for biomass. One of the principles is management. So when we're going through our system and as it grows, we're chopping and dropping. So we're like cutting our eucalypts for biomass. Essentially what you're trying to do at the end of it is put no more inputs into the system. The system creates everything that it needs. And the goal at the end of it is that the soil ends up better than it is when you started, without constantly adding fertilizers or constantly adding compost. All these inputs are required at the start, all the energy is required at the start, but as time goes on, the system starts to take care of itself. And the beautiful thing about this is that not only are you regenerating the land, but you're also producing food. So just like in a traditional horticulture setup, a horticulture farm or garden, when you have the rows, it's the same in syntropic. So you have your rows, but every 3rd row is a tree line, so you're planting trees. And every row in between that can be used for food production or vegetable production. And also what they're starting to do now is growing grass in the 3rd or one of the rows next to the tree line. So you can go in and without even having to use water, they just grow the grass, they slash all the grass and they add that on top of the tree line, which provides mulch, provides water, and biomass. So, natural succession is, I guess, a key in this. So you're not just planting for now, but you're planting for 20, 30 years in the future. You also, another thing is you're obtaining yields constantly throughout the whole system. So at the very beginning, you're harvesting your herbs and your lettuce and your brassicas, and then 1, 2, 3 years later, or even 9 months later, depending on, up north, where this was all developed, up in the subtropical, tropical climate where I was studying, they use cassava, which comes to fruit, to harvest in 9 months. Down here in the temperate climate, we can't use cassava, so I've been trying to figure out other plants that I can use, and the best is hemp, but getting a license to do that is a little bit difficult. So, I'm about to set up one of these systems, which was probably the first of its kind in Victoria. Obviously facing many challenges in that the framework that they've given to us fits perfectly into the subtropics or the tropics. But down here, it's a bit more difficult to grow banana, it's a bit more difficult to grow pineapple, cassava. So I'm having to merge my knowledge with temperate climate, food forestry and food production or organic food production, and merging it into this new form of agriculture that we're seeing. And what's beautiful is that Ernst Gosch, who started this, he bought 500 hectares of bare land in Brazil, completely changed it into one of the most diverse and abundant, productive ecologies that they're seeing in this part of the world. And it's really interesting because his weed is papaya, so there's too much papaya growing. And they even say it's not enough, it's not diverse enough, there can be more. So for me, I think this is really the way of the future in terms of food production and in regenerating the land. And Ernst says that no soil is bad soil. So even if it's extremely clay or extremely sandy, there's ways using this technique, these principles, to regenerate the soil and get it full of life again. Because what we want to do is synchronize. Synchronization is another principle that they've brought in the more recent years. Synchronizing our planting with the kind of energy or the momentum of the earth and the natural cycles. So what I mean by that is allowing the earth to take care of the direction. So putting the life in to create more life, and getting the system to run on the power or the momentum of the earth. So yeah, really synchronizing with the natural cycles. So yeah, I hope that's kind of inspired you. There's a really beautiful video called Life in Syntropy that you can get on YouTube. It's a 15-minute video. It's absolutely fantastic, and if you want any resources in terms of syntropic agriculture, there's a group of people up north in Byron Bay called Syntropic Farms, and they're who I have been studying with for the last year. And they run Syntropic courses, weekend courses, 3 days, for just a couple of $100, and you can get an absolute download of this information. It's really, really valuable, and to implement just a few of these techniques into your garden to improve production is really, really valuable. And the way that I've implemented at home has just absolutely boosted my growth just by thick layers of mulch. So yeah. Hope that's inspiring.